Today, I'm going to do my best to get through this without either losing my voice or coughing in your ear. If I mute, that's why. So, okay, welcome to this month's webcast, which is on order management. The purpose of this webcast is to introduce you to or refresh your knowledge of the orders and invoicing section of Association Online. The Association Online Commerce module is not designed to replace your accounting software. It's designed to work in conjunction with it as a daily administrative process to manage your ongoing receivables through your system. So a reminder that these webcasts aren't training sessions, but an overview, and we record them for future reference. So if you would like further and in-depth training, feel free to follow me up after the webcast. So what we will cover today is mainly based around day-to-day financial administrative processes for your accounts receivable through your website. So it will include an overview of the order list, how to process payments, create manual orders, manage event refunds, incomplete orders, commerce emails, and some of the reporting processes in the commerce module. We only have a limited amount of time today, and there's a lot to cover in here, so I'll get through as much as I can. What we'll start with is what information we can view in the order list. So anytime a user makes a financial transaction through the website, an order and invoice is created and added to the order list. So it could be a membership application, renewal, event registration, conference registration, a product purchase, and so on. All of them are created in the order list. And there are three key sections to the order list. First, you have the toolbar, which is the little icons across the top. We have the filter search options, 2 lines of filter search options, and we have the orders listed below. Let's start with the items in the toolbar. Okay, what we need to do for all of the items in the toolbar is to select an order to highlight those toolbar actions. These are actions that are going to occur. You're going to do something with an order. Okay, I'm going to go into my system, into my training site, and show you some of these actions, some of these toolbar icons. I might just make it a little bit bigger so we can see it in a bit more detail. Now, the good thing about the commerce toolbar, the orders and invoicing list toolbar, is that when you hover your mouse over it, actually the icon tells you what it does. So if you look at my mouse is hovering over the plus sign, it says it's to create a manual order. Okay, and then create a PDF file of 1 or more invoices. So it really does tell you what it does anyway. And you can see here that some of the icons are actually grayed out. It means that we can't actually do anything with them until we go and select an order. Okay, and now they're colored. I can actually do something with them. So the first one is to create a manual order. I'm not going to show you that in detail yet. I'll come back to that. We will go through how to create a manual order later on. But the second icon you can use to either open up or create a PDF file. And it means you can create a file of 1 or more invoices. I might choose a couple of invoices from my order list and select the PDF file. Okay, so if here's an example, if someone calls you and says, can you send me a copy of all of my invoices for the last 12 months? I'm sure you've had that before. It's the end of financial year. It does happen. This is a way that you can open them, save them, and send them. Okay, so it will have, this is obviously my training site, so I don't have a pretty looking invoice, but, this one displays as a receipt because it says it's the amount paid. So it's a paid invoice, and the one below is a tax invoice because it's saying amount owing. Okay, so you can have multiple invoices display. And that leads on to the next icon along, which is to create a zip file with many invoices in it. Again, you might get a company call up and say, oh, I've got to, I want to get a copy of all of our invoices for the last 12 months. So every event that all of our staff have gone to. You could search based on that company and then select the invoices relevant, or there's a checkbox to multi-select. You multi-select the invoices, multi-deselect. So you can select multiple ones and send yourself. Click on the icon, it sends you a zip file. So it will send the administrator, whoever's logged in. So it's telling me at the moment, it will be emailed to you at arose info@adversol.com once it's ready. Okay, and then you can forward that on from there. Okay, so that's a good opportunity to select multiple invoices and send them out. The next icon along is to delete, and it's a trash can. It's going to delete this order. Now, my warning, I have a high level warning about this. Please don't delete unless it's an actual real mistake. Once you delete an order, it's gone. There is no backup. There's no recycle bin. Okay, so you just need to be careful with that. Try not to delete an order unless it is, like we do in training, it's a training order or it's a true mistake and you need to redo it. I'm going to show you an alternative to deleting an order. There's an option to cancel an order as well. Okay, so rather than deleting, you can cancel the order and instead it will stay in your list. You can bring it back, basically. All right, the next icon along is the export icon. So anytime you see this little green arrow in the system, it actually takes you to the export manager. So some of you may have seen this before. It's it's available in contacts, events, membership, the export manager. So what we're exporting here is information from the commerce module. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on types of information you can export from the order list because it's endless. There's so much information you can export out of this, and it's based on your setup as well. But it is a great tool to use if you want to pull out, a list of events based on job code and how much money you made from those events. This is the way you do it. Okay, so you can filter your order list and then export and pull out the relevant fields. There's a lot of fields in the orders. I'm going to scroll down. There's even spare fields you might have set up. Total taxes, tax fields, contact fields, how they paid, the total price, shipping details, right? So there's a lot you can do. Just so you're aware though, there's something I always make people aware when I do training in this module. The order ID field is your invoice number. That's right at the bottom. You can reorder these fields and move it around and save it for next time, but that's how you will export into a spreadsheet. And click on Run down the bottom. All right, let me go back to my order list. Okay, so that's the export manager. The next icon along is an email. It says to send repayment reminder emails for the selected orders. This is my favorite email in the whole system because it's so simple. What it means is that you can filter your list. I might filter my list and say, who still owes us money? We have pending payment. Okay, which means those that are in red. Okay, the total amounts are in red if they haven't been marked as payment received or paid on a credit card. Okay, then we can select them all, and with one click of this icon, this little email icon, you can send a reminder email to say, hey, you still owe us some money. You're going to pay us now, in a nice way, of course. So that is a great little tool to use and a lot of people forget that it's there. It's like sending manual emails, as a reminder. You still haven't paid for this invoice. Look, 3 clicks, filter your list, select all the orders, and then click on that email icon. I will show you later on where this email can be edited. What else do we have in the toolbar? We have an icon to archive all of your processed orders. I'm going to explain that in a bit more detail, but processed orders meaning we've finished with them. When we process an order, it's like it's done. It's been paid. We've moved it into our accounting software, or we've captured it somewhere else that we need to have for accounting purposes. We're finished with that order. It's all done. So therefore, you can archive your processed orders, and it means that it's not going to slow the load down of your page. For those of you that have been working with Association for a long time, you might find you have like thousands of orders. You might have thousands sitting in here, and your page might take a while to load because you've got so much in here. Okay, but those who are new, you're like, oh, my page comes up straight away because I've only got 100 orders so far. It can happen. What this means by archiving, you can still access archived orders if need be, but it means that they're not going to sit in your current list. You don't have to worry about them. Okay, it just keeps your orders clean and tidy. So that's one of my recommendations for best practice is archive your orders when you're finished with them. Okay, move them on. But the last icon in the toolbar is the one you're probably going to use the most. It is your status icon. It's you're doing an action to this particular order. Okay, you can see it's grayed out. Unless I select an order, it's grayed out. So I need to select an order, click on my status icon, it gives me some options. It's my little status box. All of our orders come through into the order list as unprocessed status. Okay, they're always in the red, purpley, maroon color. I don't know, whatever color you want to call it. That unprocessed color box is the default color, okay, and default status. All of these statuses are manually managed by you, unless they paid by credit card. If they paid by credit card, they would be marked as payment received automatically. Awesome, you don't need to worry about it. But these other status, all of these statuses in here is what you can action your order with. So I might change processing, the status to processing, when I'm moving my order into my accounting software. And then I'll mark it as processed to say it's been done. It's moved into accounting software. I don't need to do any more actions with it. It is now processed. This is also where you would mark the order as payment received or payment received and send an email to say, thank you, we've received your payment. So you can send an email or not send an email when you mark the order as payment received. If you are not seeing this option, send emails, there would be a reason for that. The email needs to be enabled in the commerce emails area, which I'll show you later on. Then we have the option to cancel an order. Before I gave you a big warning about not deleting an order, here you can cancel the order instead. So let's say if I cancelled, I might cancel order number 272. Okay, that membership was incorrect. I'm going to change the status to cancelled. What that does, it removes it from the current order list, but if I look in my filter options, I can still view any cancelled orders. Okay, and I can export those orders as well. So you can see the cancelled order is grayed out and highlighted in grey. Okay, but it's removed it from my current order list. Beautiful. The last statuses down the bottom are to archive manually, like to archive an order or unarchive an order as well. So you can unarchive them too. That's a really hard word to say. Okay, so that's a bit of an overview of the toolbar icons at the top. The next thing I want to look at are the filter options, which I've started to show you as well, but let's have a look at them in more detail. So we need to, if you want to display specific orders, orders based on date, based on where in the system they come from, the state, the method of payment, that's what the filter options are for. So as I mentioned, you can search for an order. So if you get an order through in your bank account, direct deposit, you've received an order for invoice number 273. Okay, so you can put in those numbers, and any of those numbers, it could be a reference number with the number 273 in there. You can search based on name. I think I've got a few orders in this training system. There's all my, oh, I think I owe a bit of money. Or you could search based on company. I think I've got Sesame Street in there. Yeah, here we go. So you've got some options on how you search for an order. The status filter, it is by default set to current, which means only your current orders, so no archived, no superseded, no cancelled orders will display in this list. But you can change that list to status all, and it will bring up any order with any of these statuses. Okay. So there's my cancelled order that we cancelled before. So it's set to current, and again, so it doesn't slow the load of your page down, so any archived orders won't come up unless you change the status filter. You can change the status we saw before when I changed the status to pending payment or paid based on payment methods. So you've got some payment methods there. Based on where in the system it comes from. Is it a conference? Is it an order? Is it a membership module? Event management? Okay, depending on your system. And by state, so the state that the person who created the order is based in. You can also filter based on payment group. Now, most people, not necessarily everyone here, but most of you will just have one payment group, which means you've only got one bank account, one method of payment through your secure pay, etc. You can have multiple payment groups in the system. There is an additional cost to get extra payment groups. And what I mean by that is that you could, let's say, I'll give you some examples. Let's say you decide that you want your members to be able to pay by credit card, direct deposit, and check. But when they book events, you only want them to pay via credit card. Therefore, we only have one shopping cart in the system by default. But you need to create a second, it's like creating a second shopping cart. It's a second payment group. So the events can only be paid on credit card, but they still have options for membership. Or we have some clients in New Zealand. They might need New Zealand dollars payment group and Australian dollars payment group. Or there might be a conference coming up that is run by the state of Queensland only, and they need it to go straight through only to their bank account. So therefore, we need separate payment groups. That's what I mean by payment groups, if you're always wondering what that was. And then the second row of filter options, you have filter dates, and it's always set in 12 months by default. So the last 12 months, it's naturally filtered to. So 26th of June last year to 26th of June this year. And it's defaulted to the date of the submitted date, the date the order was submitted. Okay, again, that is also so it doesn't slow your load down. But if you want to the page load down, if you want to filter based on earlier dates, you can just change the date in here. Okay, and it can be based on submitted date, the date the order was processed, or the date the payment was received. Okay, so there's some options there as well. So that's what you do. You filter your list. If you want to export specific information, you want to send out emails to specific people from that haven't paid yet or something like that. That's what you use filters for. And then we have the order list, and the order list view provides a snapshot of information on each order. So your reference number, company, submitted date, method, etc. I'll just open up my screen a little bit more, so it's quite a bit of information across the screen. Okay, you can easily see from this list as well who has paid and who hasn't, because the payment received date column is date stamped. The total is in green when it's been paid and red when it hasn't been. It's pretty easy. And then you can click on the invoice from here to open just that individual invoice as well. If you have an online store, you might use the shipping note as well. There is a PDF shipping order. So it's a shipping slip that you can print out, okay, if you're shipping something off. There is a notes icon here. So if you need to add a note to an order, you can export the order details and you can see the state. Okay, so the order list is pretty self-explanatory. Now this is, and I've touched on this already, there are 3 ways you can view a user's invoice. 1, through the order list, which I just showed you. 2, through the PDF icon in the toolbar, which I also showed you before, where you can open up multiple invoices. But even better, if anyone calls you and says, oh, I can't find my invoice, can you send it to me again? They can see it in the My Orders section on the website. Okay, so if they go into the Member Center, I'll go into the front end of the website. Just go to the Member Center. They go to My Orders page, they can see a list of their orders and they can view their order details. Okay, and download the PDF invoice. Obviously on your site it will look slightly different. Mine hasn't been designed, but here I can still, the functionality is the same. I can download the invoice here. And eventually, that's what you want to be training your members to do, that so that they don't come to you all the time. Every time they lose an invoice, you can actually go find it on the website. Okay, we're going to now look at some other actions you may need to undertake in the commerce module, some scenarios you might come across. So there could be things such as changing an order status, which we just had a look at before briefly, processing a payment, editing payment details, changing a payment method, or cancelling an order. So some of these we already did. The order status, as I mentioned, when an order is created, defaults to unprocessed. You use the status icon in the toolbar to manually update that order status. Okay, I already showed you how to do that before when I was looking at the toolbar icons, so we'll move on. Processing payments. A credit card payment will automatically be processed through the payment gateway. Okay, and it'll be marked as payment received and the total amount in green. Awesome. Less work for you to do as an administrator. But what you do need to do is manually mark payments received for offline methods of payment, direct deposit or check, for example. I'm just going to show you how to do that. Even though some of you I know already know that, might give you a couple of little tips. I'm going to use a check example. I don't know if many of you still get checks. I know some do. But what I'm going to do is just to do an example of a check payment. We've got tomato juice here from the company of Juicebox, paid for an event with a check. Let's say you've received that check in your hand. I'm going to click on the notes icon, and I might go into it brings up the order information. I'm just going to add a note. Click on the plus sign, check received and banked today. Beautiful. Save, it's added my little note to the order now. And what I can do there actually as well, if I click on the order details, any of the name, the reference number, it brings up the order information in a pop-up. Okay, so I've got notes up the top. I've got some receipt information in the middle with some buttons that I can do some actions. The order details, and then the billing address details at the bottom. And you can edit. This is where, and this is a good note, a lot of people do ask me this question, can I resend an email out to someone? You can actually edit the billing details and change who the billing person is, the billing email, because they might have to send it to their accounts department or something. So I'm just going to scroll back up, and if you notice in the middle, because our payment method is a check, I actually have some extra fields in here that I can add some content. Okay, so I have some check fields, so you can put in the check details. Bank name, branch, draw, okay, check number. It's a silly check number, but anyway, you get the idea. The total amount. Now the total amount here would be the total amount written on the check. And the amount applied field says how much of that check amount are you applying to this order. So let's say we had a check for $200, but it's covering off a couple of event registrations. A company sent in a check. It's covering off 2 event registrations, one for $80 and another one for $120, for example. Okay, so this one costs $80, so I'm just going to update the details. Oh, that's interesting. I think I've used the check number one too many times. So let's try 54321. I have definitely used this check in this training system before. So instantly, did you see what happened? Because I've used this check number before, it's saying, no, that's not correct. The system's recognizing the check information. Okay, it's now updated and said, yep, those check details are updated. Now you don't have to do that. It's an optional process, but why I'm doing it is for 2 reasons. One, I can then go and add another check information. Let's choose order number 265. It's $195. I'm just going to make or change a payment because I said I'm paying by invoice. So I'm going to change it to check. Change my payment method. And what that will do is update the order details. It was order number 265. Okay, now I have my check fields because my payment method now is a check. So instead of an invoice, they're saying, oh, no, we sent a check in. So if I put the same check details, 54321, amount of the check was $200, but this order is $195. We've already used $80 of this. Look, when I click on update details, it tells me there's insufficient funds remaining on check. Okay, so that's what those fields will do. It also will allow me to, in the commerce report section, I can run a check report based on that information. Now, if you don't use checks, that's fine. A lot of people don't anymore, and they're going to slowly phase them out. But you might do the same for direct deposit. You can put in, when you select direct deposit, the bank details. You can actually store in the order as well. So if you do need to do a refund to a direct deposit, you'll have their bank details stored in here as well. So that's an optional area that you can use. Beautiful. I've got my check. I'm going to the bank. I've banked it. It's cleared. We've got the money in our bank accounts on my bank statement. I can now go and mark this as payment received. Okay. So I select it. I go to the status and I can say payment received or payment received, send emails. You can backdate the payment received date and time as well. So you say, actually, we received this money yesterday. You can backdate it. And that may impact, because when I mark that off, that is going to impact if it's a membership, and it's going to activate a membership potentially, depending on your membership statuses. Okay, so direct deposit payments are the same. You get your bank statement, you select the order, you go, yep, I've received the money. It's in the bank, thank you, and click on set. Beautiful. So that's how we process a payment. What if you mistakenly mark an order as payment received and it's the wrong one? What? I've marked the wrong order. Whoops. This is not fairly new function. It's been out for a couple of years, but some of the older clients may not have seen it. Let's say I did mark that number 260 incorrectly. It's meant to be 265. I got the wrong one. I can click into the order. I can click on Edit Payment Received, and I can clear it out. Okay, and that will unmark it as paid. Now it will be not paid anymore. Okay, so you can fix what you've done. All right, and then I'll go, oh, it was meant to be 265. Let's mark that one as payment received. Excellent. Beautiful. So you can edit that payment received option. I showed you this briefly before. You can also change a payment method. You can, if someone does get an invoice, so auto renewals, those are using auto renewals, they're often sent out as an invoice, or someone's chosen direct deposit, but they've gone, oh, actually, I don't want to pay direct deposit now. I'm going to put it on my credit card. Okay, they can change their payment method. As well as you can, as administrators, also change a payment method or make a payment for a user in the back end. Okay, and they can do it through the My Orders section. So let's have a look at that. I'm going to choose the latest one because that one hasn't been marked as paid. When they click on their order, if they have not yet, if it hasn't been paid, it's not paid, this button will display, make or change a payment. So they can click on that and they can go through and choose, oh, look, I'm going to pay on credit card now. Okay, and put their card details in. Oh, that's not the card holder name. I don't know if this will work, but it's worth a test. Okay, and submit. And that should then mark that as payment received. I'm using a test card, so whether or not that works, I don't know. But that's a great way to, again, train your members to know that they can go and do it themselves. That worked. Let's refresh this list. So that should be order number 273 should be marked as a credit card payment. Credit card payments automatically create a transaction ID as well, which is it's used your credit card gateway, and the total's now green. Beautiful. But let's say this one is an invoice. Let's say random person called up and said, oh, can you just put it on my card? I haven't got time to worry about putting it in your bank account. Okay. If they chose direct deposit at first, you can click on make change payment in the back end as well. You can go credit card or check and say, oh no, I'll send a check instead. All right, so changing payment methods can happen. Another thing that can happen is superseded orders. Now, it only occurs if you charge a credit card surcharge in the system. Okay, so if you don't charge a credit card surcharge, you won't see this happen, but it's important to note if you change your mind in future and do decide to start using surcharges. So what it does is if someone had paid direct deposit, let's say they said, oh, I'm going to pay direct deposit, it's going to charge me $25. And they go, no, just like we just did, no, I'm going to give you my card number. Can you just put it on my card instead? What that's going to do is actually change the amount on the invoice. So the system is going to supersede the previous invoice and create a new one and email the user. Okay, there's an email in the email section, which I'll show you shortly. The superseded orders email. So if you do charge surcharges, you will need that email turned on. The system does it all for you, but just so you're aware that this does occur, right? Because it does change the order amount. But creating manual orders is something you can do. The whole idea of this integrated system is so you don't need to create manual orders yourself. The user should be doing it themselves through the website. But there may be times you need to do so. There might be a VIP guest at an event. You might need to amend an invoice amount or create a special price that's for something not available in the system, like sponsorship or something. So therefore, you will need to create a manual order, which will automatically send out an invoice. Two ways you can create a manual order. You can click on the plus sign in the toolbar or on the left-hand side in the sub-menu. I'll just bring my screen up a little bit more. There is a create manual order button. The first thing you'll need to do when creating a manual order is look for an existing user in the database. Here we go, I've got Fred in here. I could never remember if it's Bedrock or Slate Rock that he worked for. Anyway, I could be completely wrong. Or if they're not displaying in the database, you can create a new user below. Okay, and put their details in. It will add them to the database. I'll click on next. Now, because I have multiple payment groups, it's asking me which payment group to use. But for you guys, if you don't have payment groups, it'll go straight to the next screen. Okay, then we add our items. So what are we charging them for? Events 1, 2, 3. Put in any codes that are relevant. Event VIP guest. Okay, and it costs $25. All right, so that's automatically is tax included, excluded, or exempt. You can add that in. You can add another item. So you could say another one could be sponsorship. So he's getting a VIP event registration, but he's also sponsoring the event. So we're putting it all in the one invoice. And at the bottom, by default, there's a tick box. Email the receipt or invoice of this order to Fred. Okay, so if you don't want to email it to him, deselect it. Say he's already paid you. You don't need to email it to him. Otherwise, select it and you can complete the manual order. So yes, I do want to add that to my order list. Thank you very much. There it is. Then you can go through and mark it as payment received or do whatever else you need to do with it. Okay, we'll say, yeah, we've received that money. Thank you very much. Thanks, Fred. That's all done. Okay, so that's all you need to do to create a manual order. This is a question that comes up all the time. How do I manage event refunds? Now, the event refunds, there is a list in the commerce module in the order list, you can export that list into an Excel spreadsheet as well. The list is derived from refunds that are processed from the events module, okay? Whether they're processed back onto a credit card directly or they're manual refunds. I'm going to show you an example. Some of you may have seen this before, and I think I did cover it in event management training a little bit. I'm just going to choose one of my events and I'm going to go into my registration list, and I'm going to, we'll do this one because I just marked this one as order paid. So let's say I paid, I can't make the event anymore. I need to cancel the event and be refunded. Thank you. When I click on the registration list, there's an option down below to say cancel registration. And it takes you to a registration page, cancellation page options. It tells me at the top the amount refundable is $25. I paid via credit card. And here's my refund method options. Don't cancel. Refund through the gateway. So if they paid on credit card, you can refund through your Secure Pay or eWay gateway back onto their credit card. Or refund manually, because you're going to put it back on their bank account or via check. I might try this because I haven't done this through the gateway before with a test credit card, so I might even try it. The refund amount. Okay, that's the next option. We're giving them no refund, just cancel it. A full refund, or you can refund individual items. So in events module, you might not just have the registration fee. You may have additional items like they had to purchase a hat or a badge, or they had to purchase the manual to go with the training, whatever it was. So you can decide which item do you want to refund, how much do you want to refund of that item. Do you want to fully refund it, refund a percentage or a fixed amount? Depends on your refund policy, right? So I'm going to say let's refund 80% of this registration fee. We're going to keep 20% for admin purposes. And when you click on cancel registration, it comes up with a confirmation. You're about to partially refund this registration through the gateway for the amount of $20. So it confirms exactly what you're about to do. Do you want to do that? Yes, I do. Actually, it didn't work because my gateway is not actually live. Let's just say manually. I just thought I'd check it. Let's do it manually. Okay. Good thing is, though, when you've got a live gateway and they've paid on credit card, you can just refund it back through the gateway. Now, let's have a look at what that's done. Look at my order now. It's got a purple background. Okay, instead of the unprocessed color. It's saying event refund. So you can actually pull up a list of status using your filter options of refunded events, refunded orders. Okay, so you can say, oh, that one's been refunded. Awesome. But then you manually have to go and obviously put the money back into their bank account or check account or whatever it might be. But when you export this information, it'll say refund. So if I look in the order now, click on the order, it's just opening up. Okay, here it is, and it says order status refunded. Okay. So when you're doing your reconciliation or your accounts reconciliation at the end of the month or end of the week, whenever you do it, you'll know that that's a refunded order. And it does then display also in the events refund list, okay, which you can export into a spreadsheet. But if you notice in my refund list, it tells me the amount refunded is $20. Right, not the full 25, because we only said 80%. Okay, but how you manage your event refunds is really a business process. This is what the system can do with it, but it's up to you as administrators or finance administrators to manage your process around that. Okay. We also have in the commerce module an incomplete order section. So an incomplete order is created every time someone started an online transaction, but it timed out before they completed it. If that's the case, it's unlikely you actually need to action it or do anything with it. You only really need to visit the incomplete order section if, say, you've received funds in your bank account, but there's nothing in the order list to match that transaction. Maybe there was a timeout or some kind of a glitch in the system. I've actually never really seen it happen, but it can happen, I suppose, which is why there is an incomplete order section. So the incomplete order list is most likely full of people that have just started an order but didn't complete it, got timed out of the system. But if you do come across one that was like, oh, that should have gone through, it should be in my order list, you can click on it. I might just use this one as an example. Not being paid. You can update the order status to complete. So out of incomplete into complete. And if you've got a transaction ID, you can pop that in as well. Then you can mark it as payment received, or you can edit payment received here, mark it yep, and send payment received email. All right, so that's what you can do with it now. And it will be back in my order list. So that was order number 248. Where is it? There it is. And we marked it as payment received. Okay, so if you do go through your order list and you go, oh my gosh, where is this order? Can't find it anywhere. Have a look in the incomplete order list. You may find it in there. The other things we can do in commerce is we can do some reporting. There are two ways we can export financial data from Association Online, and that's via the order list, or we can do it via the commerce reports. Okay, so here I'm not talking about in this situation exporting or exporting from Association Online to import into our accounting software like MyOB, QuickBooks, or Reckon. Here I am just talking about getting a report, basically. I want to get a report on all the money we've made for the last 6 months. So you can do that, pulling out the data using that export icon in the toolbar, which I talked about earlier. So you filter the list based on your required results. So what kind of results do you want to get out of it? What data do you need to export from the order list? How could it be how much money you made for an event, or how much membership renewals have come in for the last month? It could be that. When you've decided on your list filter, click on the export button in the toolbar to go to the export manager and select the fields, as I mentioned before. So let's see how much money, we'll use that example from membership for the last, which is this year. How much membership money have we made this year? Oh, not much. I think I've done a lot of training in events, not so much in membership. And we could do it based on payment received. Oh, there we go, got two. So then you can select the export button, and then it will take you to export manager. Okay, and you choose what information you want to pull out of there. Could be, I like the codes, especially in commerce. Using those item code, job code, account numbers are really handy. If you want to break it down into even more detail, where's total price? Could be first name, last name, company. What information do you want to pull out of here? Payment method, how did they pay? Could be total price. And I might just pull in the invoice number. I don't have a lot of data, so it's going to run my export straight away. If you have a lot of data to pull in, we always recommend run the export in the background. Okay, there's my spreadsheet. There's the details. And then you can auto sum. Oh, that's how much money we've made from membership, which not great. I need to do some work around that. Okay, so that's using the export button in the toolbar icon to take you to export manager. But we also have commerce reports. So the commerce system comes with the ability to create reports like daily sales reports, debtors reports, sales register reports, check reports, as I mentioned before, customer reports, and BAS reports. So a lot of the reporting you would already do in your accounting software can be done in Association Online, but it is obviously based around only the AO Association Online invoices and orders. So it's up to you whether you run them in the commerce report section. Now, just something to be aware of, sometimes you need, and this is going to be worked on, but you need Flash in your browser to be able to see your reports. But here's some examples, checks banked this month, and it will bring up, because I put those check details in, it brings it up. Okay, so you can create new reports, report types you can run. I'm not going to go into detail on these reports because there's a lot in there, but we do have some information in our user guide and instructions on how to create and use those reports. Okay, and you can export those reports into a spreadsheet as well. Awesome. So just a summary, a really brief overview today. There's a lot you can do in the commerce module, obviously. This was really best practice on some basic standard uses of the commerce and order list. So we looked at the order list view and how you can use the toolbar and your filter options, how to process payments, manage some of your orders, create manual orders, how your event refunds work, how to export data, and some of the commerce reports. Now we do have a user guide in our client support portal under commerce, so it's in depth. Please bear in mind that I haven't had a chance to update the screenshots with the new branding, so we've still got everything in orange, and that will be done at some point. But yeah, there's some details in there. A lot of people ask me about financial integration, so how we export from Association Online and import into your accounting software. Now, the information in this document does talk about how to export, but not how to import. The import process is different depending on which accounting software you use. So we don't have documentation on that. You will need to look at your accounting software documentation and user guides to do those imports. But this does explain in detail how to run the export from either exporting by order or using the batching system. Okay, so I'm thinking I may run another training session or webcast on that in future. But at this stage, so as I mentioned as well, there are commerce reports, how to create report and the types of reports you can run. Okay. So our next webcast, we are running one on the 31st of July, which is an overview of how to use scheduled payments. It's a module that we have in the system available where you can offer your members to pay their membership per month on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. So I'll explain that in detail. And on the 28th of August, we're going to look at creating and managing online forms. So they're not your membership forms or your event registration forms. They're like your submission forms, information forms for people to fill in. So that's everything from me. I will now hand over back to Marla and we'll try and address some of your questions. Thanks, Marla.